Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and let's talk about building a kit. First things first, what I want to get across to you is that you should not wait until the last minute to kind of do these types of things. Put some thought and preparation into building your kit so that it works really well for you and your family and can take care of you when you need it. Second is that you don't have to spend $1 million. You can build your kit out of pretty much normal, everyday household items that you probably have laying around anyway. That's not to say that you shouldn't invest in quality equipment if you can, but don't feel like you got to break the bank either. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to pretend that I'm not a preparedness kind of guy, a preparedness-minded individual, if you will. I am going to pretend that I'm just a guy that thought, this will never happen here. This can't happen in my neighborhood, but suddenly the wildfire is upon you. The zombie horde is coming down your street, and what do? What am I going to carry my stuff in? And that's going to go for you and everyone in your family. So are you going to be carrying everything, all the supplies needed for all of the members of your family? Are you going to have separate bags, individual bags for each individual person, all the way down to the smallest little person in your family? I don't know. You got to think about this stuff. Grab any old backpack, anything that's going to be fairly comfortable to carry something in. Something like this backpack here. It's not one that I use on a regular basis, but it's an old backpack and it'll still get the job done. It has fairly comfortable straps on it. If I didn't have any backpacks, let's say there's people out there that don't own things like this, and I understand that. I don't understand it actually, but I understand that those people exist. So let's say you don't have a backpack. I mean, literally carrying stuff in 5-gallon buckets. People use these buckets, the Home Depot Homer buckets, all over the world. In third world countries, they tote their belongings around in buckets. Next on my priority list is probably going to be shelter. What is that going to look like for you? Are you going to have tarps and tents and all that stuff? Hopefully you have all that stuff and it's easy access and you can easily throw it into your pack and be ready to go. The first line of defense when it comes to shelter is going to be your clothing. Comfortable shoes, good hiking boots, something like that is a good idea. But if nothing else, some really comfortable running type shoes will be fine if you have nothing else. And I usually go through a checklist when I'm packing for adventures. When I'm packing for trips, I always go through a checklist and I always start at the bottom and I work my way up. I go boots. Right? Do I have those? Check or no check? Socks. I want at least 2 pairs of socks. So if I get one wet, I can take them off and have a pair drying while I put the fresh pair on. So socks, wool socks. That's what I want. I'm coming up the line. I want underwear. Good, comfortable underwear that's not going to do any chafing, anything like that. I prefer wool underwear, but that's on you and your budget and what you like to do. Pants. Pants always, year-round, pants are the best choice. They're going to protect your legs from the sun, from bugs, from scratches, from thorns, from all that stuff. So wear pants. Cargo pants are preferred in my opinion, but hey, you do you. A good pair of jeans is not a terrible idea, but just keep in mind that when they get wet, they're going to stay wet for a long time, and that's could be a potential real big problem. A belt. Have a way to secure those pants and strap things to you. Put things on that belt. And then going up the line, we've got a layer that's going to be touching our skin, our base layer. A t-shirt, a cotton t-shirt, not ideal, but that's all you got. That's all you got. You need at least 2. So if you get one wet, you can be drying it out while you're wearing the other shirt. A long sleeve shirt is preferable. Again, all year round, long sleeves is what I would recommend if you've got to be out in the field. It's going to protect you from sun and bug bites and all of that. If it's wintertime, you need some sort of insulating layer on top of that under layer, that on top of that t-shirt, whatever it may be that you're wearing. So some sort of insulating fleece, down jacket, puffy jacket, something like that. And then on top of that, you want to have some sort of wind-breaking barrier. Now that could be some sort of rain jacket, which is fine. Could be a heavier wool jacket, something like that, or a waxed canvas type thing. Or if nothing else, just a heavy-duty coat that's just going to, like a Carhartt or some sort of heavy jean material. Again, if it gets wet, it's going to be a problem. But if that's all you have, That's all you have, but dress in layers. So if you're moving, you can take those layers off and shed them and be able to keep on the go. I like a baseball cap. I usually wear one pretty much all the time, but a boonie hat's a good idea. Something to keep the sun off your eyes, and then and if it's wintertime, I also like to have an insulated hat, like a wool cap. That's a good idea. A balaclava, a buff like, I think I got one in my pocket. Yep, a buff like this, a neck gaiter, same deal. Those are really, really handy, and it just helps keep your neck warm. Can pull it up over your face to keep your face warm, and that's how I pack my clothing. Start at the bottom and work your way up. Hopefully, you have some sort of sleeping bag laying around. This is just an old military surplus green bag that goes in the military sleep systems. These are great. They're lightweight. They're not amazing they're about 3-season bags, I would say. In the wintertime here, when the temperatures get below freezing, you're going to be pretty cold in this if this is all you have. Lightweight fleece blankets like this are great because, yes, they are lightweight. They also dry really fast, and they're pretty warm for what they are. But you will require either a heavier, thicker one, or multiple thin, lightweight ones like this in order to keep yourself warm in freezing temperatures. Here's one of the green sleeping bags inside of the Gore-Tex Bivy. And I really like this in the wintertime because it keeps you dry, for one, obviously, because it's the Gore-Tex layer on the outside, but it also keeps you significantly warmer because it's an extra layer of insulation. If you have one of those, awesome. If you don't, that's fine too. We have to improvise some other way to accomplish the same goal. Now, you can buy inexpensive sleeping bags from Walmart and things like that, but typically the problem with those is that they're not that they're not warm, they just take up a lot of space. They're really, really bulky. They don't compress down really well, and you'll need a giant bag to be able to tote them around. I forget what exactly we used this for, but some project I used this for. But here is it's got this shiny reflective mylar layer, and then this foam, pretty durable foam on the other side. This is a pretty big piece. Obviously, I wouldn't need all of this, so I could cut this down to something manageable. So I could roll it up and then unroll it to be used for my mattress, my insulating layer to keep me off of the ground. Because if anybody has ever done it, if you slept on the cold ground in the wintertime, you're gonna be really, really miserable, even if you have a sleeping bag. So having some sort of layer between you and the ground is a really, really good idea. And even something as thin as this is gonna make a pretty big difference, especially because it's got that reflective layer. I've heard of people cutting their insoles, replacing the insoles in their shoes, or adding to the insoles of their shoes with this stuff here in the wintertime to give them that extra warmth, keep their feet away from the cold ground. Yoga mats, that'd work fine if you had one of those laying around. They roll up similar to this, a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker, but they would get the job done. They generally don't have any reflective mylar on them either, so that's a thing. But it does make a really big difference. Like right now, I can feel it's cold outside. It's probably 40 degrees-ish right now, something like that, and my knee is on the cold, wet ground. But if I was to, let's say, put a hand on the cold, wet ground, and then put a hand on this pad that I've created, there's a big difference. I would probably want to lay on the silver side of my pad, so it would help reflect some of that body heat back to me. Husky contractor cleanup bags. Heavy duty 3 mil 42 gallon. These would work good for some sort of shelter, keeping your gear dry, whatever. They work really good. They're durable bags. They're pretty big. The 55 galloner ones, those would be even better. But this size is big enough if you cut them open to make a one-man shelter. I've done that in previous videos. Obviously not my preferred source of shelter, but in a pinch, a trash bag such as this one, such as that one, will get the job done. We'll throw that in the kit. If for nothing else, it's a multi-purpose thing. We can make ourselves an even better mattress with just leafy debris by jamming that full. Here's some house wrap. This is the Home Depot stuff. Tyvek is much, much better as far as waterproofness, but this stuff would get the job done as well. So if you needed to make yourself some sort of ground sheet or a tarp out of something and you didn't have anything and you were on a really tight budget, using some leftover material such as this Tyvek here would be a really, really good idea. Now, obviously, if you have the budget and you have the time to get these supplies, a good military surplus or just a brand new mil-spec type poncho is highly, highly recommended. I think a poncho is just about one of the most useful, versatile pieces of kit that you can have. And if you don't have one in your pack, I feel like you're a little bit wrong. So invest in a good poncho before it's too late. Several ponchos, it's a really, really good idea. But if you didn't have that, even a trash bag, that 42 gallon drum liner that I showed you a second ago, if you cut a hole in the top, if you cut a hole where their arms would go, that makes an improvised poncho. Obviously doesn't protect your head from any kind of rain, but it does work well as far as keeping the water off your shoulders and your torso. A good quality tarp or tent, something like that is an excellent idea, obviously, as far as shelter goes. And that may be a one-man size. It might need to be much, much bigger to get your whole family in. That's on you. I don't know your situation. But if you have nothing else, just an inexpensive tarp, like the ones that I keep stashed up top there, the loft of the barn area. Something like that would be a whole lot better than nothing. Now, if you're going to carry some sort of shelter like a tarp sort of system, you're going to need some way to rig that up, and having cordage is going to be really, really handy and basically required for the most part. So having paracord is what I prefer. Bankline is great, but if you don't have that, that's okay too. Really, any kind of cordage will be fine. It doesn't matter. As long as that cordage is strong enough to do the job, it really doesn't matter. Any kind of twine, inexpensive string, something that you have. Even bungee cords work okay for securing a temporary shelter, hooking through the eyes of the grommets of your tarps. So not my preferred, but it definitely does get the job done. A Bic lighter is by far my favorite source of fire. That it's the most reliable, it's the easiest. It's just my go-to. I generally keep mine in an Exotech fire sleeve like this, not just because it keeps it watertight, but because it also protects the button from getting depressed in your pocket repetitively over and over every time you fish your keys out of there, and it wastes a lot of the fuel. I always remove the little safety guard thing off of my lighters because it just makes it so much easier to light. But in addition to that, you can have a backup ferro rods, things like this. This one has magnesium on it, a big block of magnesium, which is good for helping you get fire started. These Exotech ferro rods are great. But to be honest with you, as much as I like ferro rods and I like using them, and I know that they work even when they're soaking wet, a lighter is still the most reliable way to start fire, in my opinion. I can dunk this in the creek and then blow it on it and dry it out pretty quick and get it back in working order. Pretty quickly. And if you keep it in a sleeve like this, man, it's no worries. And you know what I have in backup? The backup to my Bic lighter is another Bic lighter, and probably another Bic lighter, because it's just a no-brainer. It's just the easiest way to start fire. As most of you know that are watching this video, starting a fire is not as easy as just holding a lighter to a log. That's not how that works. You're going to need to have a way to process that material. I guess we're assuming that fire is even an option. Depending on the situation, why you're even bugging out in the first place. Well, I guess we need not get into all that. But if you can have a fire for warmth and you need a fire for cooking, whatever purposes, it's not just a matter of holding that lighter under a log and getting it going. You're going to need some additional supplies, such as tinder, and then kindling, and then small fuel before you can get into the bigger stuff. Kindling is pretty easy to find where I live. Where you live, probably the same. You can usually find some sort of kindling somewhere. Tinder, however, is not always easy to find. You need to have a keen eye. You need to have some training. You need to know what to look for, how to process it, how to make it work. So why not just carry it with you? But the easiest to make, the cheapest to make, this was purchased from the dollar store. A big old bag of 100 cotton balls. And then this jar of petroleum jelly titled Baby Love. So you know it's good. You just mix a little bit of this, just a finger load. You dip your finger in there like you're going to eat some peanut butter out of the jar, and then you smear that all inside of one of the cotton balls. You don't need very much. And that works really, really well, especially if you're trying to start fires in wet weather. This is a very inexpensive little pocket knife that I had laying around. Is this my favorite knife? Absolutely not. Do I like serrated blades? Nope, I do not. But it's a sharp, pokey thing, and it will get the job done. It will feather some sticks. It will cut some paracord. It will do all the stuff that you need a knife to do. You don't have to go out and spend $1 million on the best bushcrafting knife to get the job done. Even an inexpensive Gerber folder like this will work in a pinch. I always keep a multi-tool in my pocket, but maybe you don't. You can always just reach in the toolbox, the tackle box, whatever you have, and grab yourself a good pair of pliers, because these are super handy for all sorts of things. And if they have the wire cutters right there, that makes them multi-use, multi-purpose as well. Even just a kitchen knife such as this one would be a very handy thing to have if you don't have some other knife. I don't understand people that don't carry a knife in their pocket all the time, but hey, if you're one of those people, grab a kitchen knife. You can make a sheath for this that'll slip in your pocket really, really easily, just out of some plastic packaging and some tape. Next, we just want to raid the kitchen cabinets for some sort of cooking vessel. A pot such as this will fit in my backpack, and it will get the job done. I think this is the one I found when I was at Yosemite. I was hiking on the trails of Yosemite and found this one sitting there. Yeah, a pot like this is great, and you can actually store a bunch of stuff in there. A lid would be really good for a pot like this. It helps boil your water faster. And again, you have these already. You don't have to go out and buy them. They're ready to go. So now that we've got something to cook in, we've got something we can boil our water in. The leftover water bottles from a water bottle, there's the cheapo ones. Those are great. You can refill those. Those are fantastic. And if you've got the means to boil the water, obviously after it cools off, if you have the means to boil the water, you can refill those used water bottles easily. And those can be found anywhere. Everybody's got those laying around. So, but when we're talking about foodstuffs, the dried meals, the freeze-dried meals like Mountain Houses, that's what I prefer, because they're lightweight and they're easy to cook, and you have yourself a hot meal in just a few minutes. It's not a big deal. But beyond that, if you don't want to invest the money in that because they are kind of expensive, you can just raid your pantry. You could raid your kitchen for all kinds of different stuff that works well and will keep without refrigeration, and you can keep it in your pack for a long time without having to cycle through. One of my preferred sources of nutrition when I'm on the trail is going to be peanut butter. Why? Because it's super caloric dense. So this jar of peanut butter here is 28 ounces. There is 25 servings per container. Servings about 2 tablespoons. There's 180 calories in 2 tablespoons. That tells me, I don't know, there's quick math. Let's say there's 4,000 calories in this jar of peanut butter. That is a lot, and that will keep you going for a significant amount of time. Raid the pantry for some canned goods. The ones with the pop tops like this are good because you don't need a can opener to open them up. And then you can just throw them in the pot, heat them up, and they're ready to go. They don't need to be rehydrated or anything like that. The downside is it's heavier. That's pretty much it. Don't forget something to eat with. Spoon, whatever, forks, if you're planning on heating up some canned goods in your pot. A little bit of salt in a Ziploc bag or something would be a good idea too, because you can add a pinch of it to your water that you're drinking just to replace any sodium that you're losing through sweat. Don't forget some basic toiletries like your toothbrush. Throw that stuff in there. Some Band-Aids, bandages. Maggie, are you seriously drinking out of the toilet while I'm doing this video? Honestly, that's what's happening? So anyway, don't forget medications if you require them. Little bottles like this that you can get from the hotels, moisturizers, shampoos, just body wash, soaps, and things like that. These are easily stuffed into a bag and basically free because you get them from the hotel. Flashlights like this little one here with extra batteries, really good idea. Being able to see at night is an important thing sometimes. Some way to protect yourself is a good idea too, even if you don't have a concealed carry firearm or anything like that. And all you have is the old trusty 22, lever action 22 like this one. I did a video on this one a while back that I turned this into what I would call a survival rifle. So pretty cool little video if you want to check that one out. But anyway, something like this is still really reliable, functions well, ammo's easy to carry, lightweight, and it will get the job done. A well-placed shot from a well-trained individual holding this 22 right here is a force to be reckoned with. There's no end to the things that we can talk about. All the various billions of things that we could cram into a backpack or bug out bag, if that's what you want to call it. But we've got to stop the video somewhere. But I think you guys get the gist. If I've got some way to keep myself warm through, whether that's through shelter, keep the elements off of me, or that's through fire, if I've got a way to make that happen, and all the things that go along with it, the cordage needed to set up that tarp or what have you, if I've got that in place, I've got shelter, I've got fire, I've got some food, I've got something to eat, something to put in my belly, because if I'm bugging out, if I need to move from point A, again, worst case scenario, if I have to leave my home, that means that everything has gone south. It's gone really, really bad. I need to have some sort of fuel to keep putting in my body to get me from A to B. Hopefully it's not a very far distance. And then obviously water. You can't go very far at all without replenishing those fluids that you're losing through sweat, just breathing. So make sure you have a way to secure a good, reliable, clean source of water. Where I live, it's not a big deal. There's water sources everywhere. There's creeks flowing all over the place. Where you live, you might be in the desert somewhere. You might have to carry a lot more water, and you might have to think that through. I don't know. Maybe your vehicles are working. Maybe their EMP hasn't happened and everything is fine and you can just drive to that location. That's a whole different set of guidelines and parameters. I could throw a lot of stuff in my truck that without having to think too much. So anyway, I hope you guys appreciate this video. Leave me lots of comments. Tell me what you think. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I cannot wait to see you on the next one. I can't even get out the door. There we go. We're moving.